All right. Hello, everyone. We're just gonna get started. Yeah, face rig. Ooh, face rig. It completely downed my like I tried to run it and it just kept loading. So I restarted Steam completely, and now Steam won't load. So we are just going to move on from that, and we're gonna get into the fun stuff. So today what we're doing. First of all, when you saw the title, VTuber redesigns a character sheet. You might not have thought that we're going to be in 3D modeling software, but that's what we're going to be working in today. I'm back in Rhino 5. If I was using or rather, if I was doing this any other way, it would probably be in Adobe Illustrator, because that's really good at doing line work. But the program I know best is Rhino. And so the sheet that we're working on today is for an RPG called Isekai RPG. It's one I've been working on for a while. And yeah, I mean, we got this nice character sheet so far, but this thing hasn't been touched in probably 6 months. I mean, I first made it towards the start of the pandemic when I was hopeful that, people would be able to play this game in person. And it has been a hot minute since we've been able to do any RPGs in person. But regardless, we still need to update this, because man, it's out of date. And actually, what might be cool to pull up is I have made I can pull it up on Firefox quickly. I have made a version of this character sheet for Google Drive, which has been really great for all sorts of online play, which is how most of the game has been played so far. A lot of it's been online as just a reality of, well, the times, I guess. So let's see if I can find that real quick, and I can pull it up. Here it is. Let's see, and I'll just move this over here. There we go. Took some time to load. But here is the actual, character sheet as it exists now as a Google Doc. This is, very up-to-date, because it's super easy for me to continuously iterate on this. So we got this, gonna flip back to Rhino. However, the nice thing about this sheet is, well, first of all, it looks a lot nicer because I've been able to do things kind of however I want it. It's just existing on a piece of paper, so I can organize that however I want to. But on this version, you might notice this is a spreadsheet. And I like spreadsheets like anyone else likes a spreadsheet, probably even more, because for some reason I really like spreadsheets. But that's beside the point. It's a little derpy because everything has to fit in boxes. We don't have really nice curves, and things can't be placed wherever I want them to be, because at the end of the day, this box here, it's gonna have to line up with everything else I want on the same row and the same column. So that's what we're doing today. I think some of the big changes are, since we have originally designed this character sheet, we have added a few more systems. One thing that is nice to keep track of in your health is the amount of wounds that you're at. But also, this uses the super outdated character description. Character description. Yeah, that's outdated. It's now a little, what do you call it? A Mad Libs fill-in-the-blank storytelling thing. So we want to move that somewhere to, the character descriptor area. But, yeah, we have some work ahead of us. One other thing is there's a lot of colors, and those represent the different layers that we have on our dock. But what's important with our layers is we have these to be printed at different colors and different thicknesses. So, for example, where it's like this solid purple is where it prints out a little more like dark gray. No, I think it's the other way around. Where it's purple, it prints out black, and then where it's blue, it prints with a dark gray. Although, I don't know. It could be the other way around, and then where we have our lines, we also have just a dark gray, so that there's not just black and white, there's a little more depth to this whole thing. Okay, yeah, so this is also old because it doesn't have the speed and threshold values. This whole back sheet is just a bunch of lines. The inventory sheet's all fine, honestly. I think all we have to do is mess with our primary sheets here, because these are the ones that you generally look for all of your main character reference stuff. This other sheet on the right, let's see, is this picking up my cursor? Okay, let's make sure that this shows my cursor real quick. Oh, it should. Okay, cool. It says it shows my cursor, so I trust it. The sheet on the right here is just extra space for if you run out of space on the main sheet, because the whole system is built on this, like, pick what you want system of powers. So there's a lot of things you can take, and it's helpful to have room for that. And let's see, yeah, having the new character description paragraph on this sheet would also be good. You know, just like moving things around, making sure everything looks nice. I'm going to real quickly do a little bit of promotion, because I know there's a full server of VTubers, like, who just want to do RPGs. So I feel like if anyone would want to see my work, it's probably these guys. So give me a hot second. Anyways, how are you all doing today? I know I'm pretty scatterbrained at the moment. It's been a little rough getting things set up, and I've been running behind a little bit, but how are you all? Hopefully the day has been going well. Cool. Alright. Tired? Not super... Yeah, I saw you're on Elite Dangerous. Sounds like a good time. Alright. And then, let's see, what day is it today? It's Wednesday already, wow. I guess, yeah, this is my third stream of this, like, week of streams. So tomorrow's Elite Dangerous, isn't it? Okay. So let's see. I'm going to make some quick notes of what we need for each sheet. First of all, with this sheet, all this out. We don't need that anymore. Let's see. I'm going to pull up a text. So for the sheet on the left, we need to add for background and at level 1 powers. We also need to add wounds. Oh, that's very large. Forget, there's a command in Rhino where you can, like, edit texts. Okay, that's just that. Well, we'll just swoop this on down, not that far. Yeah, there we go. That's for this sheet. And then on the right, I'm actually going to just copy and paste this text here. We're going to go in here and say we need to add section for backstory. And we need to... what else was there? I think, honestly, that might have been it. I'll double check. Let's see. So if we go to the spreadsheet version of the sheet, what else do we not have? This has, like, different speeds. But my theory is that if you have this sheet here and you have like a special speed, then you can also write it down next to here. It might be nice having like a small little notes section actually in over here. I'm gonna add this. Add a little notes section. And that's specifically for like, you know, if you have like a fly speed or maybe you have some other threshold power, it might be nice to have an extra section for that. And then it might also be nice on this sheet, since it's the one where we have all of our room for text. I know as an RPG player, I have often enjoyed like having room to actually write down things that weren't necessarily like my powers, or everything I could do. And while it's great having all this room for that, it might also be nice to just add like another room for, add more room for writing. I'll just say add note space. Okay, cool. So let's get cracking. First of all, this here's gonna need to shimmy around. The way I could see this going is for the backstory. I kind of want to put it like up near the top area, like so it can take up space like that. But I don't know how much room I'll need to start with. So I guess let's start with importing the little character thing. So what I'm gonna go over to the spreadsheet, and you can see that this here in the bottom is just the backstory. This is the whole chunk of text that we need. So I'm just gonna copy it and see if I can paste that in Rhino. We'll see. I'm not sure. I've never tried just like copy and pasting large amounts of text in Rhino. Okay, so text. We're gonna just start with that, and then we're going to scale this down. And then we're, of course, gonna need to like space this out a lot. Yep. Okay. How's that? Considering that this is a standard sheet of paper, that's still pretty big. So we can shrink this down even more. I guess if I really wanted to be consistent, I could take like the size of one of these three things here and make that the size of the text, but these are still pretty large areas and this text is very dense. So we can make it a little extra small. Hey, Kukuno. Yeah, we're kind of 3D modeling, technically. We're in a 3D modeling workspace, and I'm working on a character sheet for Tabletop RPG. Oh, why does all this spacing look off? Okay, that's a place we'll have, like, a line underneath. This whole thing looks strange. Let's see. I think maybe I should try to assume, like... Or rather, I should decide how wide I want to make this first. Like, if we do that, then the backstory has a good amount of room to live in. The other thing is, we have a lot of areas wherever now it just says, like, Table 2 Colors or Table 5 Build. We want people to have room to write there. So I think what I might do is... Oh, okay. We'll make sure that around each of these, we have, let's say, 4 spaces on the right and left. Right now it's just 2. And then what we'll do is... Actually, because my thought is, we have here on the sheet where there's this little PP bar. It's a resource that you use to, that you consume to use your powers and all that. Currently, we have these numbers, and they are in our lightest print color. That's like a light gray. So you can very easily mark over it, but you can still see it. it would be nice to have that with the text where whenever it says like table 2 colors, it's there, but it's really light, so it's easy to write over. Yeah, let's try that. But I think if I do that, I'll have to make 2 separate objects. Like every single piece of text that has like table whatever, like that'll have to be a different element because I can't have. Let me back up. So all this text right now is within the purple layer, which is technically layer 2. These are not named, they're just whatever. Which is not the best way to do things, but it's how I'm doing it here. This whole thing is a single element within this layer. It's just a single text element, has all this text within it. But if I want to say have table 2 colors as a different object, that needs, or in a different color or different like lightness, it needs to be on a different layer, like completely. So I think actually what I'll do is if this is like, this is all black, then instead of having, I'll keep a space holder for now. Placeholder for every time we have one of those, because I think this will actually end up being a little more complicated than I want it to be, but that's how it is. The other thing is there will be like a line underneath. I think the thing is we could just build the underline into this. That makes a nice dark line if this is like our black or dark gray. Yeah, okay. I'm a fan. So make sure we have a lot of room to write. And instead of these placeholders, I'll just say that we are going to bake our line into the text. The other option would have been we go in with the actual line tool and we just build a bunch of lines. But I like this idea a little better. Okay, how's that look so far? Yeah, those underlines are solid. That's nice. I still think it could use more room, just in case people want to write more. So let's add maybe 3 more underlines. Of course, this is the kind of thing where once it's all like designed, I'll actually have to go back, print it out, and then see if that's enough space, because this is all very like trial and error. And with this, yeah, we could even make the text a little larger here. Like we could scale it up. Because another thing to note is the gap between these 2 lines, if you can see them, they're small and yellow. But the gap there is like slightly larger than a lined sheet of paper. But that's what we expect like you to be able to write on. Yeah, okay, so maybe adding some more space and like scaling this up. I don't know. We'll see what happens when we like get this part done. I don't even really know what I'm doing too much. Gonna fully admit that. And out in the crowd. Wait a second. And they're known for something descriptions. I think that's not supposed to be there. Yeah, I descriptions. So need to take that out. Oops. My signature. Colors, 1, 2. Clothing. And my blank. that's a good place to new line with the blank accents. The funky part is also, I used a very specific offset for this and a very specific like fillet wherever I had two lines that met, like all these edges are rounded, or sorry, all the corners are rounded. And I'm gonna need to figure out what those were, because I actually don't know the best way to find that. I was in a show about blank because this RPG is about going into other anime shows and fixing them. And you yourself are an anime character. Yeah, I mean, TTRPGs are something I'm super into. I know if you want to look at that as, oh, what is it? Like, if you want to do that as a VTuber collabing with people, there's a Discord server that if you want, I can shoot you a link to, because it was posted a while back, but I honestly can't remember everything about it. But I know they have, like, if you want to do things as a player, you can, you know, figure out when people are running things and sign up. And if you're just looking to do things as, like, if you want to run games, then you can try to find players. I think that's a pretty nice system. Because I know as, like, I at one point want to, as a VTuber, like, run RPGs and, like, hopefully play what other people are running. Because it's something I love a lot. But it can also be difficult to find things that are running. Okay, how's that? Okay, still a little narrow. Like, each of these lines happens about every... Like, there's 2 for every 1 real line we have. I don't know how dense that is. It's been a while. Let's see. I know Dice Queen D, I think, was the person who started it. So if you can find her on Twitter, you could probably go back through the post and find a link. The main thing is now this is taking up a lot of vertical space, so it might be better to put it down here below the little character portrait. At the same time, I feel like it's nicer to have a lot of horizontal space to write. But yeah, in terms of sizing, that's just, like, pretty small. And I feel like if we make this too much larger, then it'll just take up way more space than it should. Design decisions. Have to make design decisions. And that's not always fun. Let's see, for now, we know that we want this to be on the... I want to say this wants to be on the purple layer. Guess we can always, like... We can actually always figure out what this will look like. If you just use the print... No, I think I need to first zoom in on this dot, because Rhino, what it does when you hit print is it centers the thing to be printed out over, like, your view in the program, which is okay sometimes. If we type in print, it should pull up this guy, and then the scale we set back to 1:1. We make sure that the width is 8.5. Oh, I hit enter. I didn't want to do that. Let's try again. Print. Yeah, okay. So you can see that now the thing is like centered. And then you hit output color to print color. Okay, yeah. And then let's zoom this in. The only way I know how to do that is just by changing the scale. Yeah, so can't really get a good view on it because I'm not over it, but I can zoom out again and zoom back in on the text, and we can see that it is like the gray. Yeah. Maybe that'll work. I think I'll scale it up a little bit. I'll just move the I befriended bit because it sticks out. Blank as a rival. Never figured out blank. Okay, and then we put that there. I'm going to scale it from this point. It's a little like that. And then we're going to select all of these green lines, and I'm going to hide them for now. Okay. And if I really want to make this look a little nicer in the display to see what it might look like, I can go to my display options and set the background to white. Although now some of like the green lines get hidden behind the grid. I'm pretty sure I can actually turn off the grid. Let's see. I just hide command, because technically the command plane. Wait, command plane? Clipping plane? No, it's something plane. Wow, it's been way too long since I actually did this. Other option. Just click it. You drag it off the grid. Wow. And that's what it looks like. Which isn't bad once we, like, break this up into its own box. I think that'll work. We'll test that for now. I'm also just going to move all of this off of the grid so we can see how things will look a little nicer. A little better. I don't know why, but I cannot do words today. Okay, so next thing, I have to figure out my spacing. First of all, for distance. Gonna go across there. 0.06 inches. Okay. Go to our purple. We're going to make a line. And we're going to figure out how much spacing we need above and below the text. We want it to be about symmetrical, and I think that this height above the text to the purple box line thing is the same height as one of these, because I put the text on one of those lines, and also just like looking at it, that looks all right. And then we're going to offset the distance being 0.06 inches. And then, yeah, you can see that like these two thick lines compared to the white space in the middle, they're all the same width. And then with this here, the proportions are like square. If I drew a line from this corner to this corner, that would be a 45-degree angle. So I know that that's what I'm trying to get. Now I copy this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click there, and I want it to be... Okay, I'm not gonna do it that way. I'm gonna make a line with a length of 0.06 inches. And then I'm gonna use that as a spacer for this here. So now we have a bunch of these purple lines that are all nice and spaced out. One thing is we have a lot of extra green curves. I'm going to delete. I'm going to delete this one too, so that there's a lot of headspace on this first line that you can write on. Yeah, the next thing, so I think this here is a hatch, which is like a filled in area between curves. Unfortunately, I think... Actually, no, we might not have to delete it. I'm going to delete it anyways because we're going to rebuild it later. But we're going to break out our trim commands. So first of all, let me restart this. We're going to select all these. So now every line that we've selected, when we have the trim command, if we click on something, it'll use these lines and trim out what I click on regarding the bounds. I've never had to think of how to explain the trim command. But basically, here, let's restart this. I'm going to select this, trim. It's now going to use this line as a cutting object. So if I just select all these other lines, it will cut them off because they intersect this line. That's how we're going to explain the trim command. You can also use it to select multiple objects, and then like you can select the things that you've also selected with the trim command, and I can't really explain why, but it just works. So now we have nice clean edges. Gonna do the same on this side. Cut off all this, cut off this, cut off this and this, this and this. And look at that, nice hard edges. But we're not done yet. We need to fill it. We need to find the radius. You can see right now, I had my radius set to 5, and the units I'm working with is inches, and so it did this. It's not quite what I'm looking for. Okay, I think I can just use the radius command. Yeah, click this. The radius is 0.120, so double the thickness of these lines. Very cool. Thank you, Rhino. Now what I can do is select these, fill it, and then I reselect these. But first, radius is 0.12 inches. And wow, look at that. It just works. The main thing is they're the same radius, even though one is inset from the other. So it does look a little weird. Like, if I was trying to be fancy, what I would probably do, let's see if I undo the fillet, I'd do radius of 0.06 for this one. And then my fillet, I'd do radius of 0.12 inches for the outside. And you can see that looks like it flows. And actually, wow, I like that so much better. I kind of want to redo the filleting for like the entire sheet. Boy. Let's see. If I delete this, is this? Yeah. Single line. But if I explode it, then it's not. But I would have to rebuild every corner. We'll come back to that. Because it does, on the one hand, it does look nice. On the other, now comparing this to everything else, like this inside edge looks oddly skinny. Like just, it doesn't actually look right. Even though I know it should be right mathematically. But something about the way it meets the actual curve just doesn't look right. The question is, do I want to actually redo every curve, or do you think... Because on the other hand, there is kind of a charm to having the slightly thicker corners. At least I think there is. Because it just appears to be thicker because of the different radii. For the sake of my sanity, I think I'm just going to do everything with the same radius. Let's fill it with these, click these. Everything must be filleted. And the next thing we need to do is we need to join all of these curves together. Because currently, like, this section that we just added is different than this curve, which is different than this curve, which goes all the way around here. So we need to join them together so that they're treated as one curve. And I forgot to fill this corner, but that's fine. You can just do that, and it works. Then go back, join all these lines together. That's a curve, that's a curve, that's a curve, that's a curve. Cool. Next thing is we're going to regenerate this hatch. So what we do is we do the hatch command, select our two curves, and it fills in the space between the curves. Usually with hatching in architectural drawings, you might have something more like... That doesn't look right. There we go. Let's do this. And then we're going to turn down the scale so it shows a little better. You use hatching as a way to, like, fill in volumes between lines with just hatch work, with hatching lines. Usually these have meaning, like certain hatch patterns mean, like, that this is made out of concrete, or like reinforced concrete. But I'm just using it to fill everything in, because it works when you use the print command, and it prints out nicely. Okay, yeah. That's nice. Next thing, we have these labels for just about everything on this sheet. We actually don't have one for the backstory. And now that I'm looking at it, most of the space is in the bottom right corner. With everything else on this sheet, I think it's generally tends to be like on the top right, like for powers here. Like that's on the top right of this box. Alternatively, we could sneak something in vertically, maybe? I kind of like the idea of putting it in the bottom right, though, because we can do like what we had with powers here, where we have a separate box, spaced out, like, but it still looks like part of the same box if you were to say, like, if we draw a box there, you can see that the little powers box fits within this box, and I feel like I'm rambling about design things that I don't fully know how to describe. But that's how it is sometimes. I usually don't talk my way through these processes, and these are things that have been just kind of built into my head at this point. I'm pretty familiar with what I'm doing. Okay, another question. If we put a bounding box, which will build a box around our text, I have a feeling... let's see, what is it? Can't remember the command I'm trying to use. Distance. The distance between the text, no, not the center of the text, and this line here, I have a feeling it's going to be just about the same as every other spacing on this model. Yep, 0.06 inches. Cool. Is this text? Cool, that's text. I'm just going to copy this and have another version over here. We're going to change this to backstory. And then what we want it to look like is, have the whole box in this corner so that you can see that this big box here is for the backstory. So what we need to do is we're going to bounding box it. And then we're going to offset the curve of our bounding box by 0.06, which we already have. Now that's the spacing between the text and the interior of the, box around it. Then this here is the actual box around it. And what I'm going to do is we're going to move this here, that there. So now it's lined up with where it would be in our box here. Yeah, okay. So we don't need the bounding box. And I'm going to actually get rid of this hatch again, just so we can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to fillet these edges. Wait a second. Okay, now. There we go. So this is like the little backstory thing with the box. I forgot to hit the top right corner. We're gonna make sure we get that. Cool. And then if we hatch that, we can see that's like the box for the backstory. But we need to cut this box here on the inside so that we can do what we did here. Yeah. Rambling through design. So we're going to take... I'm going to take this curve. I'm going to turn it into a bounding box, or I'm going to generate a bounding box around it so I can use this for offsets. I'm actually going to explode this. The explode command takes our box and breaks it into 4 individual curves, because it's a box. It has 4 sides. You select those 2, which means that I'm left with the thing on the right and on the bottom. I'm going to delete those lines. I only want the these 2 here. I'm going to, wow, offset them. And now this is the spacing to cut the curves for the box that we have there. I'm going to use the trim command to get rid of those. And now, get rid of these. You can see, aha, we now have an empty space, which means we can build up the geometry to get like a new corner on the inside. Okay, so we're going to offset that, and that's pretty close. Now we just need them to merge together in the like fillet. But they're too short. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale 1D. This is like a scale command, which would change the scale of everything selected by a proportional amount, but this is scale 1D. So specifically what that does is it's a one-dimensional scale. So I define the line that we're going to scale along, and I can expand it. Very handy command. I use this probably more than I should, but I love it. Okay, now we have these overlapping. So next we're going to trim. Boop, 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 boop. Just going to get rid of that and that. And now we need to trim the edge off what we just added. There we go. So now we have nice sharp corners, but we have to fillet these. So that's the next thing to do, is a lot of filleting. And since this is like an anime-inspired TTRPG, I know what I like about these thicker edges is like, it almost looks as if, it's a good way to explain it. When you're drawing with like ink, if you start on one place, you draw a line, just like, gonna draw a line like this. Then when you draw a second line, you know, you might want to get like a little bit of overlap, but where those 2 lines meet, it's going to be a darker area with your ink pen, because you've just gone over it more. Typically with like manga, that's maybe not as relevant because you use, like when you use ink pens, they are really dark. So you don't see any difference because it's just uniformly dark. But I kind of like it here, because like if I was drawing out these boxes, it would make sense that the corners would be where the thing is darkest. And I've just gone over with the join command. So we have these again. Gonna hatch. And there we go. Another nice thing about this is we have this little clause here, like, if the character is starting at level 2 or above, repeat this sentence half your level times. It's not really, like, part of the backstory, it's just, like, a mechanical thing that happens to be part of the backstory. And that almost lines up with this little cutout here. So it's just, like, it's a little note. But it's not, like, important to the backstory itself. Actually, I like that so much, I'm actually just going to take this out. Shimmy this on up. Hello, welcome. Today we are not actually playing any games. And, where's the... Okay, I'm just going to redo this to say what I want it to. There we go. Because I'm going to slap this down here. Boop. Okay, that's too small. But that's fine, we can just scale it back up. And now, yeah, there's that little bit of space, so... Oh, that's interesting that I haven't actually thought about before. On a paper sheet... Yeah, on a paper sheet, you don't have more room to write this on. Like, if I actually was starting at level 2 or above, I would write while working here, yada yada yada. But there's no room for me to say while working here, like, again. That's... I've never thought of that. And, like, if you're working on the spreadsheet version of this sheet, it's pretty easy to just, like, you know, add more commas, more things here, because it's all just a text box. And there's plenty of room because it's super, like, horizontal. But on this version, there isn't as much room. Yeah, I'm actually not sure the best way to handle that. I could see one way is, like, expanding the, like, while working here, just adding, like, more space, basically. Just, like, this whole thing at the bottom is just, like, a bunch of blank lines. Theoretically, the game goes up to level 12, which means at most you'd have 6 things to write. But that's also one where you have, like... Really, this whole thing where it's like, while working here, this should be an extra large bit of space to underline, because you're writing, like, sentences. I feel like this whole thing with all the underlines is going to have to be, like, tweaked a lot. So maybe that's something to work on. After everything else with the sheet is done, I can, like, print the sheet out and actually put in what I want to say. Another thing is, if we do have, like, a notes section, it might work to have that be, like, this box here is just going to be more room for notes, and then everything else below that is room for writing more powers. That might not be a bad way to do that. And I do like the idea of, like, this going across just being its own box. Because then it's just, like, a field of rectangles. And while it is nice to have these, like, weird shapes that, you know, they wrap around, almost like an L, like, those are cool, exciting shapes. But at the same time, maybe it's easier to be organized with a bunch of rectangles? I think. maybe we take a break on this sheet, we go back to this sheet. So one thing we need to add, now that we have all this space here, is we have powers, but back on the spreadsheet version of this character sheet, we have like at level 1, background, tropes. And that's because these are mechanical things that you get for your character. At level 1 is just whatever things you pick up as a character at level 1. Because every character comes from a genre. They're all like characters who used to be in anime. And you get certain things if you are just a character of a genre, like that's where you get skills you're experienced with, things like that. And so it's nice to have a little box there. Background is actually how you generate these protagonist points, PP. And then tropes are are things you get as you level up other than powers. If you go and focus a specific archetype of character, you pick up tropes. Okay, so that'll be the next thing. At level 1, background tropes. Background tropes. Okay. I wonder... I feel like if we just did 3 boxes, almost like if we did... I'm gonna eyeball this. Oh, yeah, that was too big. If we did something like at level 1, background tropes. It's really hard for me to see the yellow outline on this sheet. If we did 3 boxes like that, that might not be a bad way to do things, because at level 1, that's static, you get that once. The background, it's also not much text and you only get it once, whereas the tropes are something that you can pick up more of as the game progresses, so you'd need a larger box for that. Okay, yeah. The question is, like, what proportion of space do these inhabit? So here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to need lines. We're going to need a lot of lines. So we have our horizontal ones going across to give us reference spacing. Have this. We're going to make a line that's 0.06 inches. And then we're going to mirror this across and then move to there. And that gives us our like size reference. And I'm going to build a box across there. We offset it like that. That's all the room we have. And now I can clear away these other lines I made. Cool. So we need to break up this box into 3 boxes. Now there are some pretty funky tools I have available. So one thing I could do is say, like, I can divide this curve into 3 sections, and what that'll do is it'll place like points to break the line up into 3 sections evenly. That's not quite what we're looking for. I'm almost thinking if we have the first 2 boxes, like, what we could do is we're going to break this up into 4 segments and say that the first 2 things, our at level 1 powers and our background, they're just going to get 1/4 of this like area each, and then the tropes could get 2/4. And that's not a bad way to do things. I could also see this being uh, 5 segments, and then we have like 1/5, 2/5, and then the first ones would get 1/5 each. This last thing would get the 3/5. And now that I think about it, there is another option. I still think I'm gonna keep this for now. Make a line. What we do is we just say that the background and at level 1 feature gets a horizontal box so that there's more room to write in, which makes a lot of sense to me now that I think about it. If you're writing things, we write horizontally. If we have a square, then it's like, it's not the most convenient shape. But then tropes could still have all this room here to work with. That makes sense to me. Now, in terms of like the proportions, splitting things up into fifths isn't particularly bad. It gives tropes the room it needs. However, I also see that there's this one line here between our like main 6 stats, and we could use that as our like vertical spacer. So instead of having an actual like nice proportion, we just use a pretty arbitrary proportion. And that's not always a bad thing. It means I can delete these. Now the question is, how do we split things up vertically, and then do we also have a gap? What I mean by that is offset this 0.03, and we're going to do this on both sides. So one way to do it is, instead of like having a actual space between these boxes, which just takes up a lot of room, we could just draw a line across and basically have at level 1 and background be their own box. Or like have this as a whole be one box, but then there's just some lines in the middle. It's not the same design language as we've been using for the rest of this. Actually, no, I take that back. We use that for the whole inventory sheet. And if we used it for the inventory sheet, then I think we're fine doing that on the main character sheet. Even though it does look maybe... It looks a little different, how everything on the character sheet's very, like, bubbly and independent. This is a very just big, heavy, segmented box. But at the same time, if we break these into their own boxes, they're going to take up a lot of space. Okay. I think we're going to give that a try. 1, 2. We'll see what happens. We're going to trim that, trim these, trim this and this, and this, and this. So it looks something like that, plus all the many fillets. Another thing that I'm thinking is, for example, when we have... I like this font size, so I'm going to steal it. So this would be like, what, at level 1? We also don't really have much room to do the, like, individual bubbles that, like, everything else has. Then we're going to have background. Yeah, so, because we want to have enough room to write in this, if we have these big, like, thick lines, it's just going to be very, very dense. And we're taking away room to write. Take away the colon, maybe. Semicolon, no, colon. Okay, cool. And then on the right, we would have tropes. Yeah, that looks about right. The thing is, the box for tropes, while we do need, like, room, we don't need this much room. So with tropes, I could see splitting into its own, like, big box. The main thing is, right here we have, like, our one line between endurance and knowledge. If we just... What is this music? I'm just gonna veto that. Okay. As I was saying, we have one line here. I could see tropes being its own, like, floating box, almost like powers, like where it has the name, it's not connected, or like how we have it in backstory, because we have room for that there. The question is, which line do we want to line up here? Because the options are... Let's see, distance is 0.06 inches. Like, we could do something where this is the gap, this is the line, and then there's, like, another thing here. Yeah, so today we're listening to Dova Syndrome. They have a playlist called Listening Lounge. And I mean, it certainly is something. It's like a series of 9 videos that are each an hour long of just like nice royalty-free background music. You can just use them. But it has some weird things. Like, I'm pretty sure one of these videos is just like, it's very carnival-y music. Which, I don't know, it's not really the vibe I'm going for. I know one of them was like jazz, or like more lounge music, and you know what? I'm fine with that. That's a nice chill thing to do 3D modeling to. But I don't know. I guess they produce a lot of music, and it's all available to use. It's actually where like Hololive gets like all of its main background music from. So if you're just listening through these random tracks, you can like be like, hey, wait, that's the same theme that like Amelia uses, or like, wait, that's Pekara's background music, which has been pretty interesting. But yeah, it's something. What we could do is like break at level 1 and background to its own box, and then tropes to its own box. Or we could have these all just be in one big box that's broken up into 3 chunks. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna design both of them, and then we're gonna see which one we like. So let me... This is like a weird way of basically having a branch in a repository. I just build a physical thing. I think I did all the same over here. We can actually see like the slow development of the special boxes. I think here what I was testing out is specifically like for the skills, like how to design that. So I had some where it's like the things in the bottom right, top right. What if it was like offset? And we get these cool little bubbles, which is what we settled for. Except here, I'm going to be testing with these things. Okay, I think first one I'm going to do... I'm going to undo that. I'm going to work on this one first. This will be the one as we originally thought it. 1 box. Okay, so we're going to first join all of our lines. And then we're going to fill it the hell out of it. That's probably the best way to put it, because, oh boy, so many corners. Also, Kuka no. Oh, the little scene you made with the snow globe. Absolutely lovely. I'm glad I got to play a role in inspiring you. It looks so nice. Like, it's such a nice little snow globe scene. Okay, so that's what that would roughly look like. At least it's one possibility. I might also do another version where we have like tropes in its own box. Because we have room for that. The main thing is tropes could even... Yeah, okay. So I'm going to make another version of this real quick. What we're going to do is going to... let's take this size. Bounding box. We have line 0.06 inches. I'm going to shove this into place using these lines I just made as little spacers. So that would be the size of the... Yeah, that's the offset, that's the box. Explode, like just that, to delete the rest. I'm going to delete the hatching. Trim these away. Actually, I think with this one I wouldn't have it be like a separate box. I think I'd just do that. Then we're going to join these together. And when we select all of these, we hatch it. That's what that would look like. That looks pretty icky. Oh, also, because that's not supposed to say powers. It's supposed to say tropes, which is longer than the word power. Actually, wait. O-W-E-R-S. Never mind. They are the same length. I still don't like it. But it's nice that we actually, like, made it so that we know we don't like it. Next one. Actually, wait a second. I don't know if that's actually spaced out correctly, but I know this is. I'm going to delete these two lines. Offset that. Offset that. These lines are a little short. So we're going to scale 1D. Just to fix that. This is what it would look like, right? Technically, those would expand out. So let's scale 1D those. And since we're selecting from the midpoint and we're scaling in one dimension, it works both ways. Usually if you're just scaling from an endpoint to like another endpoint, scale 1D won't matter much, but if you want to scale it equally in both directions, you just select from the midpoint. Then use this, this. Oh, there's different lines. Cool, we can get rid of that one then. We already have that line. Trim. And like, the music in the background now, I don't really know what it is. It sounds like bicycle horn music, but I mean, it's still kind of chill. Like, that would be having two separate boxes. I think I like having tropes be like small font size, because it just looks nicer. So we're going to keep that. We're going to move all this to the corner where we know it lines up. I should also do the same thing with this, just to make sure it's lined up. which I can clearly tell now that it is not, but that's an easy fix. I don't know why we're using 0.06 as, like, the dimensioning for everything. That's something that's just been lost to time. We got level 1, background, and tropes. Now all nice and pretty. And now we fillet everything. It also helps because I know I mentioned this, like, it's an anime-inspired RPG, and so the font I'm using is called Comica Axis, and it was actually developed to look like the lettering used in American cartoons and comics. And so that combined with the, like, kind of darker corners, I don't want to give this necessarily, like, the look of being a manga or whatever, but I do want it to look maybe a little like that. Join these all together. Going to hatch that. Hatch this. I think that's nice. Gives you room to write. Maybe for... I could see tropes maybe having, like, the different lines, because there's supposed to be something there for, like, 3, 5, 7, and 10, I want to say. Yeah, 3, 5, 7, and 10. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. How well does this fit? You can, like, kind of squeeze 4 lines in there. So I think I will. Just to trim away these excess lines. Make sure they're, like, lined up with the same spacing we have here. And let me guess. Distance here is, I'm gonna guess... No, it wouldn't be 0.12. 0.18 maybe? 0.19. Exotic. 0.19 inches. I guess that because that would be triple the length of the gaps between lines, so basically the same as these 3 here. But it looks like it might have actually been arbitrary. I might have just eyeballed it and been like, that looks good. So tropes would look like that. I'm not sure I like that. I like tropes being at the top left, but I don't like these lines. Alternatively, if I just leave it like unlined white space, that might be the way around it. So that you can just, you write what you need in the space that you have. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll do that, because also that just looks nicer if the, like, at level 1 area background, like, those are all just going to be white space. So it'll blend nicely if this is also white space. Whereas powers, it would be really weird to have so much white space. I mean, technically it is white space because even though we have all these lines, they are super light, so you can write over them, and you won't have to worry about it. That's actually a good argument for having all the lines and tropes, though, because even if you don't use the lines, they're there if you need them. Okay, what's this space here? 0.13. Okay. Let's see. 0.13 inches, a little over the spacing of 2 of these lines. Move that straight down, delete that, so that's spaced, and I mean, see, the thing is, if we didn't have the word tropes here, this would look great. Like, wow, that looks so clean, but it's just a box that doesn't say what it's there for. One funky option that I'm not sure I'd even be a fan of is like doing text this way, or would it more likely be like TROPES. It'd be spaced like that. At the same time, that does fit the overall form of this better. So if we had like, what would it be like? .06 inches. Something like that. And then we have room for like the thing to, the actual title to breathe, and there's plenty of room to write it, and then you can have like 3, 5, 7, 10. Okay, I like that. It seems like I've just kind of gone from, I'm not really sure what I want to do, to, we're going to do it this way. But before I do that, I'm going to keep this version around for the sake of like knowing the path I took to get here. We're going to shuffle these around a bit. I think what we'll do is we'll have this off to the side here, and then we'll just keep branching down. This will be like there. Paste that there, and then this will be our next iteration. I like to just have the complete history of what we've done, like, kind of laid out. Makes it nice for my record keeping of, like, what's actually changed with the sheet. Okay, so next thing. TROPES. Have this here. The thing is, I don't like the vertical spacing on this. Like, honestly, it's not bad. I'm just being a little picky. Bounding box. Offset. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all this, select move, and this midpoint should line up with that midpoint. And then that's all like the area we need around it. What we do is we have a line that's 0.06 inches. Make sure snap smart track. What this will do is it means I can like put a point here and Rhino will like be able to just draw vertically from there. Sometimes it can be very annoying, but for this, it's actually helpful. This line here will be like the actual vertical line. And then, what was the spacing here? 0.19. The distance is 0.19 inches. And that's our trim for that there. Not sure why it is, but I just accept that it is. Okay, so what we're gonna do, get rid of this hatch. Trim. Join. Fillet. Oop. Ooh, there's not enough space for it to fillet. Interesting. Let's see if I undo the join, will it be able to work something out? No. In which case, what can we get away with? Well, that's pretty easy to find out. What we do is we just explode the fillet. We know that this is basically part of a circle. We're going to make a circle. We're going to make it a, what is it? I think 2-point is where you just draw the diameter. Yeah, so we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do, we're going to move this top, no, it's like a circle. The top point to where it would be if it was on this line. And there we go. Now we get the fun part of getting to jank a box together out of these. Mirror it around the center. And honestly, I might as well just delete everything that isn't the circle. It'll be a little easier that way. And it just kind of works out. The text happens to be right on the edge of those circles. Very nice. Not sure what that means, but proportions. I think I can mirror that around midpoint there. What we do now is we select these lines, trim, trim. And from a distance, that looks okay. If you go up close, you know that mathematically, these are not the same. And even looking closely, you can see that that curve is more than this curve. But I'm fine with that, I think. One more version I think I'll do. Just before we finish that up, I just want to double check something. And that's, right now, the tropes is using the same font size as like at level 1 and background. I was going to say, what if I use like the same size as like where it says powers here? I think that's actually just going to be too big. So we're not even going to try that. Okay, so what we do now, we select all these, join them together, and hatch them. That's not bad, actually. It looks a little cluttered, but it's not bad. And what we can do, we can even have this rewrite to say like 3, 5, 7, 10. Ooh, I don't know. Kind of like them centered. So we're going to make a bounding box. And we're going to make sure that from the midpoint, which I think is like here, yeah, 0.06 inches. Move, where's the midpoint? There we go. So now we know that the text is like centered. And then what I might do is, what was that distance, like 0.19 inches? Nah, let's not do the same thing here. Let's just do these. It's a little janky on the 10 because it's just wider than everything else. But I think that's nice. Now you have your tropes for 3, 5, 7, 10. And let's see. Tropes, 3, 5, 7, 10. And you can only ever have one trope tree. I'm pretty sure there might be an exception somewhere in the game because I feel like there is. But that's good. Make sure to save. Save to my desktop. Cool. Alright, so that's the tropes. That's like level 1 background powers. That works, and I think overall it works together. That was a productive little detour. Maybe where it says like tropes, it's still a little weird. I might do a quick spin off of that real quick. What we're going to do now, we're not actually going to use text. We're going to use something called text objects. First of all, we're just going to say TROPES. Then I think you can technically just explode that. And there you go. Now, instead of being like, what is it? Instead of being text that's editable, just an object, these are just curves. I could extrude these or do anything I want with curves, including, say, go to layer 2, make sure these are on that layer. I can hatch them. And now it looks not at all different from any other bit of text. The main difference... I'm going to undo all this because I realized I made this a little harder for myself. What I should do is TROPES. And then hit explode, then hatch. Because now what I can do is I can, like, basically bounding box each individual letter and work out a spacing between each one. Gonna bounding box these, and you know what better distance to use than 0.06 inches. We use it everywhere else, so might as well just keep on using it, right? I'm gonna build out all these lines so I can move. I'm gonna actually start from the top and work down. That didn't look like it lined up correctly. There we go. This is what I learned 3D modeling for. I learned it for being able to do this pretty easily, right? It wasn't how to learn how to model buildings, how to model text. And then I'm going to do is bounding box this. For now, I'm going to turn this into a group. So now all this text is like one thing. If I click anywhere, I move it. It's not like if I click one line, it does something weird. Okay, so now we're going to delete this. Need to find the midpoint here. Line it up on the midpoint. We're going to use a full scale command, not scale 1D, just to see if I can make this fit nicely. What I should really do is line on the top and say 0.06 inches. Join that. Then scale here, there, get this to where the line on top lines up with this line here. And then last thing to do is to put this squarely in the middle of this box. Which I also happen to know that this dot here is the like center of mass for this entire thing. So if I just line that up on the line, boom. Wow, that actually looks pretty nice. So we're gonna ungroup, select everything, unselect, try again, select everything, ungroup, deselect, these, then delete. So now we have this tropes versus this tropes. And now we have to decide which one we like more. And honestly, it's a tough call. The nice thing about this is the spacing is about 0.06 inches from the side of the text and at the top and the bottom. It's also a bit large, which is one thing I like about this smaller thing that says tropes. But I also know that this will be easier to read. So I think I'm going to go with this one here. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Alright. Next, one of the things we need to add was wounds and maybe miscellaneous notes. Miscellaneous notes, I don't think I'm going to add. But wounds, what these are is, wounds is a status effect that every turn you take X amount of damage until you have it taken out. So what I have on the version here is I have wounds right next to hit points, because then if you have it right next to your hit point value, it's very easy to remember that you have the wounds. Whereas if you just had to write it in notes somewhere, where's tab? There it is. If you just had to write it in notes somewhere, that might be a little difficult to remember. The downside is that this looks really nice right now. This layout, it's just so clean and so nice. So where to put wounds? I guess, yeah, if I did have a miscellaneous notes area, you could have a little box specifically for keeping track of wounds. Where to put it? If I put something... I could put something over here by where there's speed, threshold, genre. The thing is, this spacing between here and here is pretty nicely thought out, and I might want to shimmy some things over. Alternatively, what we could do is we could have hit points, current, and then what we could do is max, and then wounds. Almost like that, maybe? I mean, we'd work out the actual spacing, but somewhere where you can clearly see, because current is that makes sense to be on its own, whereas maximum hit points, you don't change much. So you probably don't need to reference it as large a number as your current hit points. And then wounds is also something where, I don't know, maybe that'll work. I don't like how it, this version on the left is so clean, and I really like it. But at the same time, you do need that information. Okay. What if wounds was just smaller? Wounds on the bottom, max on top, a little bit of gutter space between each of them. But roughly have these boxes line up on the side. I'm in favor of that. We're gonna do... start by making bounding boxes. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a line that's 0.06 inches, just for size reference. Go ahead and copy this here, and to the bottom here. Want that to be there. This to be here. We also know that we want the bounding boxes to line up on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and move that here. And then how far away do we want it from the diagonal? Just want to check something. Okay, so the current thing has not quite one width away from the diagonal. I'm going to fix that. Put that where the C just touches. Yeah, there we go. And then move these to where it just barely touches. Well, maybe not with wounds, but it's close enough. Then delete all these lines. And that looks pretty nice. At least, like, it's organized. If I really wanted to, I guess what I could have done is... I know that there's, like, an inherent diagonal. Well, I say inherent diagonal. There's literally a big one that's, like, here. What I could have done is, like, organize these to be on the diagonal. But at the same time, I think maybe it's nice just having things lined up. Although admittedly, having them on a slight diagonal does play to the strengths of the font. It's like, the font already has a diagonal built into the colon here. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna circle, 3 point. Given 3 planar points, there's always a perfect circle. Roughly, these are the font itself is not perfectly circular. I can do this. I can find their midpoints, and from there, oh, the second one's smaller. We're just gonna eyeball it. That looks to be about the center. That looks to be about the center. Scale one dimensionally. And that would push wounds from there to there. Which I thought I would like more than I actually did. I don't like that. So we'll just keep it as it was. Cool, so I think that's good for this sheet. It did break some of the, like, just cleanness here. But I think it works. I guess if I wanted, I could make the, like, max the same size as, like, wounds. I don't think I would actually gain much from that, though. Okay. I think that's good for the front sheet. I had a note of maybe, like, we could add a little miscellaneous notes section. I don't think I'm actually going to do that now. I kind of like this. It's definitely gotten a lot more cluttered than, like, how it originally was. All this. Now it's all this. One nice thing about the old sheet is these were just floating text options. Which, like, it kept this open area clean, and it had a very clear distinction between, like, this heavy top bar that just had, like, all your stats that you need to have, like, on quick reference, and then the powers, which were nice and spelled out for you. But this sheet does have a little more, like, information density. Okay. I like that. Next up, we hop back to this. What did we want to add here? We could also have, like, miscellaneous notes here, honestly. What we could do is just, like, literally break it up like this. 0.06 inches. Okay, then we have area for like notes, and then we have our powers. Continued. Cool. I think we're going to do that. Wait, that's not right. We want to delete the ones in the middle. Yeah. Trim these out. Then, at some point, these curves intersect. I don't remember where. So what we're going to do... Fill it. Fill it. Fill it. That's all filleted. Redraw these lines. Join. One thing I'm just now noticing is, let's line these up. One sheet goes down further than the other. Like this here, there's a lot of foot room. Which, I mean, it's not the worst thing to have a large amount of room on the bottom of a sheet. Let me see real quick. Distance. 394. 394. We could... Cool, I think that's just the margin we're working with. What we could do is bring this section down, have more room, or... No, if we have a little note section, it's going to be super skinny. Maybe that's not the worst thing, though, if we just want more notes. Because one thing is we do have, like... This inventory sheet doesn't actually have, like, any extra room on it. Like, if you have room to write your gold, like your currency, you have room for all your starter items, but if you want anything else, then you don't really have much extra. So it could be nice to just have a few small boxes like this here, just miscellaneous room to write in. That's pretty nice. Or here, it might be nice to have a little bit of room. So I'm gonna see what that looks like. Go from here to... Come on, give me something to snap to. Oh, is that just a hatch? There's no curve. Okay, in which case, if I bounding box the hatch, yeah, there we go. What we're gonna do is gonna fill in a box. this corner to this corner. Have a line. Move it here so that we can start offsetting it 0.6 at a time. That didn't actually line up, did it? This too. Is that not? There we go. Offset it once, twice. Means now we don't need this. We do kind of want that. Not if we do this, though. What I'm doing is I'm making a box, and now when I offset that, we can delete everything inside. We can delete this box for spacing, and that's what it would look like. Delete the curve, we just want the box. Fill it all the corners. Alright, then hatch. That's a pretty skinny little area there, though. I'm not sure I fully like that. But what we can do is there is a little bit of a magic trick that I'll show you. What we can do is we can split our two curves with this one here, and then what happens is we can just scoot that on in. And then we can... Okay, it won't let us join. That's okay. What we do, we just trim those out, and then we can join. And then we can hatch. That looks a little better. Then it's all lined up with the majority of the body of the sheet. I don't know what's going to go in here. Honestly, it might even just be better to... Well, on the one hand, if we drag out the powers box, then there's this corner that's not really used. Whereas now what we have is it ends, but there's this really nice thing where it lines up. Apparently not perfectly, but it should line up there. But given that it doesn't, maybe we could just extend the box down a little lower. Or maybe we just have some room on the bottom of the sheet. I think we're just going to keep the room on the bottom of a sheet. It's a lot of time to keep designing things, just leave white space. But I know that as an RPG player myself, I have often used like the margins to write in. So having just larger margins on the bottom, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just more note space, but it doesn't get in the way of the aesthetics of the thing. That's how I'm going to justify that. Cool. So we have this sheet. Well, not that sheet. We have this sheet, which is our new go-to. So I'm going to copy this out here. So I remember that this is like the new sheet. Then we have this here. Backstory, we need to add a thing where it says powers. Coincidentally, we already have exactly that. Although what I might do, I don't think I'll do it that exact same way. What we'll do is delete that. We will copy one of the small ones. There we go. Little powers continued. Maybe add a little period at the end. Yeah, I think that's nice. We'll bounding box. Offset for spacing, offset for the actual thing. Going to move this into position. Lines up with this corner. There we go. Welcome back, Hukana. I don't know how much you exactly missed, but we decided that we're going to go with this for the character sheet. We're just going to keep some room on the bottom so that you can write in the margins, because I also like to write in the margins. So even though the bottom doesn't line up, it's not necessarily bad to have. And I guess there's also a lot of room in the header. You don't need all of this room to write that information. But now we're back here. We have, well, we're working on this box. Then let's offset that for spacing. And that's where the other fill will go. Cool, so that gets closed. We're going to delete the hatch. Going to use this box to trim away the existing bits. There we go. Also going to use it to get rid of these lines for now. We'll work the exact spacing out later. Fillet A, B. Just keep doing these until we have a nice little box with nice round edges. And then we hatch that. Very nice. Extend these lines out. Trim. Actually, I'm going to select all these lines. Trim away the excess box. And that. And now we're going to join everything together. And then we're going to fill it. Yeah, I guess all in all, this is a pretty good example of the things you can do in 3D modeling software that traditionally you don't think of. I used to do all this like paperwork, basically designing character sheets, because I can CAD with the tools I have. Although then again, I know that Rhino is a very good tool. It has all these like different commands for like splitting, intersecting, all that pizzazz. Whereas I don't know if like how many of these things are available in different modeling softwares. I know, for example, SketchUp, very basic 3D modeling software, has none of these commands, basically. It has some ways that you can kind of do the same things, but maybe you can't do things as specifically. Alright, so we have powers continued. Then we have this little section, which I was thinking would be like just notes, just bonus writing space. I'm not really sure the best way to just say, hey, this is extra writing space if you need to write anything. I guess I could do kind of what I have here, where it's like, we have the small text just up in the corner. I could put text up in the corner here, just like, notes. I think I'm going to do that. Bounding box. Offset that. That's the spacing around the text. To move this from here. Get the smart track. And there we go. Ah, I made a mistake. I made quite the mistake. I didn't change the text. And in Rhino, when you use the text, it centers it. It's not justified left or right. So trope should be notes. Yeah, which is slightly shorter. Just have to double check. Bounding box. Offset. And this time, move, get the thing to snap to that point, and you can tell because it leaves behind that little, like, gray icon that looks like the same thing that you select with, but it's gray. And then delete that, and there we go. We have just a little notes section if you need to write anything. That's pretty nice. I think what I want to do, I just want to see what this looks like when printed out. Just this right here. We're going to center our view on that. We're going to hit print, and we're going to change the scale. I just like to use my scroll wheel on the mouse. I know that that's what works. And yeah, okay, so all the outlines are in gray. Same with the backstory text. But now our notes is nice and dark, but it's still small and, like, it's not that obtrusive. It should still be legible at the scale of the entire sheet. I don't exactly know how many, say, points that would be, for, like, if that would be the equivalent of a 12-point font. What is this? It is the equivalent of this up here. Okay, so next thing, we have a lot of these, which I don't know if I want to do much with, the underlined areas. What I do want to do eventually is say, like, adjust some things. Actually, you know what? No. I was just saying how I wouldn't do this, but I think we're going to go ahead and get a start on it. Say, table 1. X. Go ahead and scale this down. So this is our green layer, which is the light gray, which means when it's printed, it's super easy to, like, you can see what it says, and maybe it's not the easiest to say there, but it's easy to write over it and still read what you have written, especially if this isn't, like, hatched in, but is instead... Yeah, I've exploded the hatch into just curves, which means that'll be super light. It's what we use up here on the little protagonist point bar. It's also what we use in the inventory. Actually, in the inventory, we just use text. We don't even explode it. Okay, so in that case, I've already lost where I've been working. What was I working on? Up here. I might just keep that text then, if I can get away with doing that. It also means if I need to change anything, super easy to. Now we just got to copy everything. So table, okay, first thing is table 2 colors, table 3 eye descriptors. What I'll actually do, so I'll just copy this, go back to Rhino, text, put all this again, and in height for 3 inches, we're going to say 0.1 inches. Because I'm pretty sure height is just of each line. There we go. Now we have something to reference. So first thing is this. I'm going to lock, which means now I can't actually, like, select it or anything. If I hit, well, if I undo it, that works. I was trying to hit the unlock. Yeah. So now we won't accidentally select this text. And then, once we do this, I'm going to save this. I'll print it out later, and maybe I'll come back to this off-stream, because most of the work on this project happens off-stream. On the one hand, I was thinking that after this, we would do some... We'd maybe design some items, but honestly, Kukuno, I want to draw you as the gelatinous cubes. That's what we're doing next. Table 2 is color. Oh, it did justify left that time. Interesting. I want to make this smaller then. Accidentally made a copy of it. There we go. I said I'd do it. It was just a matter of when I had time. And that might only take, like, I don't know, an hour. Eye descriptor. Is that it? Eye descriptions. Howdy, Yosei. Oh man, why did my name show up as orange in the chat? Can you at people on YouTube? Is that how it works? Table 2 color. Oh. Table 2 color again. Or is it just, when you just say like done do go, it's like that's the person streaming. So we'll make it like highlighted. I don't know much about the streaming platform I'm on. I just know that it generally works. And hair descriptions is table 4. Oh, okay, that's not gonna fit super well. All the more reason that I need to actually do some printout tests and see how this sheet works. That's fine. I'm table 5 build, table 6 height. 5. Was it table 5 build and then 6 height? I think it was. Yeah, but today we've just been working on some iterations on this character sheet. So the final one we've settled on for the main sheet looks like this. We just added some extra boxes, did some adjustments, and now we're working on this other side that has the very Mad Libs-esque character description, because it includes what you look like, which is these first 2 paragraphs. The third paragraph is about the show you are in, because the RPG is based around characters who were characters in anime. Their shows ended, and then they go and help fix currently airing shows. So that's what this one is the what was their show like, and then the final one is what's happened since you've started like going in and fixing shows for the Isekai organization, which stands for Inter-Series Expedition to Keep Anime Interesting. Isekai. That's the whole game. It's something that a friend and I have been working on for like over 2 years now at this point. Height. Right? Table 5 build, table 6 height. Cool. And I know the character sheet, character generator, like that's been my specific domain. Also like making the items. I'm gonna copy these for the sake of having correctly spaced words. Or correctly spaced lines. I can just... People say that my table 7 noteworthy trait. Yeah, it took a while. That was one of the things that my friend and I were like walking back to campus at like, geez, really late after getting food at midnight. And like it was lightly snowing, it was real chilly, and we were just like spitballing about the game still. And man, there were some really bad acronyms at the start. I think some were like, we tried just straight up anime. There's also senpai, which I'm glad we didn't go with, because that was exceptionally cursed. But isekai, I mean, the acronym works well, and the very idea of isekai as a genre where you're going into other worlds that don't belong, that works well for the entire concept of the game as well. Plus, like, it's a very anime word. And when we were planning out this system, that was like 2 years ago, there was a lot of isekai. That was still when Konosuba was pretty new, things like that. My signature color. Okay, that's clothing, color. Which one's color or clothing? Clothing is... Oh, lordy. Table 8 is clothing. then this is also clothing. I know, like, another thing I have is, if you've seen any of my YouTube videos where I mention a Discord bot, you'll actually notice that the bot is called Loremaster and its icon is for the Isekai RPG. It's because for this system, I built a Discord bot. And I've been hijacking it whenever I need a Discord bot for anything else. And it is capable of, like, doing, like, all this background generation with a command. It can do the dice rolling system because we've decided to use a very weird dice system where you roll a big number of 6-sided die and then you're trying to roll on that dice above a certain number or equal to a certain number. And if you roll above or equal to that number, that's a success. And then that's the entire dice system of the game is a bunch of d6s. I recommend if you're going to play this, if you're going to start early, then you can get away with like 10. We have things where you can literally drop like 100 d6, which is very fun to actually roll, having had to roll 100 d6 for this game before. I was going to show about Table 9 anime type. And in terms of like RPG design, we felt that the idea of being able to roll like 100 d6 is, you know, pretty anime. Because if you think of something like Kill la Kill or very over-the-top shows, you get these extremely exaggerated effects. Is it convenient to the player? Maybe not. And that kind of thing is also like pretty specific for the characters who would be... I don't know. Let me restart. The whole idea of the very over-the-top dice rolls, like, that is a specific ability from the what is it? Oh god. It's a comedy genre, comedically overpowered archetypes. That would be like your One Punch Man or some of the animation that you see in like Kill la Kill, Studio Trigger, where it's like super exaggerated. That's where you just have the ability to drop 100 d6. Where I was... Table 10 rolling anime. Whereas most of the time you're only rolling no more than like 10 or 12. That's like more of a usual number. And when you're starting out, you're really not going to be rolling more than like 5 or 6.